Welcome to the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast. This is where we are transforming lives, inspiring you to reclaim your health, your wealth, and the power of your mind. Here we share actionable insights, inviting you to turn inwards and design your life of purpose and abundance.
Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And today we're diving into one of my favorite conversations. What happens when success on the outside no longer matches what's happening on the inside? And we have the perfect guest for that. Laura Waldman is a wealth manifestation expert. And you know, I love all those things. So I'm so excited. And she's also a healer. So the combination she brings to the table in this podcast that she has called Money Manifestation Mastery. So I was already hooked. For more than 25 years, Laura has helped entrepreneurs, leaders, investors, and high achievers, which we all are, uncover these hidden patterns that impact not only their money, but their relationships, their purpose, their fulfillment and alignment, and truly receive abundance or wealth. What fascinates me about Laura's work is that while people often come to her wanting more money, what they discover is something much deeper. The questions about their identity, about intuition, leadership, vulnerability, and what it really means to create a wealthy life. So today we're talking about why some of the most successful people on the planet are often carrying struggles nobody else sees. I'm so excited to welcome you, Laura, to this podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I call this the Radical Responsibility Revolution podcast because at its core, it's about reclaiming our own power. So, what does radical self responsibility mean to you? How are you exemplifying that in the world today?
Great question. And I was so delighted when you talked about this as well, because I talk about it. And I wish more people would talk about it, first of all. So, I am obsessed with taking like radical self-responsibility. And I wish every single human being on the planet would, because we would just change so many problems in the world. So I have to say, I am like this. I was made like this because I was raised by parents that did not take any responsibility, and particularly my mother, who blamed everyone and everything for all the problems that were going on in her life. And I grew up listening to her blame other people, feel a victim. And then I watched her go from relationship to relationship to relationship, literally manifesting, recreating the same dynamic in each relationship, whether it was a man or a woman or whoever they were. And I watched her. She's my greatest teacher of all time. And I knew, so I was this very wise young soul at the time, that there were things about herself she couldn't see, and she could only project and blame. And one of the very wise things my dad said to me is, Laura, when you point the finger, there are always three fingers pointing back at you. Those things are really what made me who I am. So I knew that, trust me, I've been with this same man for 26 years. There's definitely been times where I've been pointing the finger and thinking it's all him. But I learned and knew that I needed to go in and look at what is going on inside of me that is mostly unconsciously creating the experience I'm having, whether it's my physical reality, my emotional reality, whatever was happening. And I've been asking this question for my whole life, particularly since I was a teenager. And what I found was it's never comfortable, right? Taking self-responsibility, because it means you have to look at all your own crap. So I spent 20 years deep in the world of the shadow, the unconscious, which are also the blocks to manifestation. I've been around the universe and back again, trying to understand the unconscious patterns that run us and run myself and heal them. So that is basically my thing. Whatever's showing up, good, bad, beautiful, ugly, I take responsibility. Not that I am the creator of all things on the planet, but I'm definitely responsible for how I react, how I respond, what I do or what I don't do. And trust me, this has been a long journey. I've been, on this path one way or another for 30 years. So I've learned everything very much the hard way through a lot of failure. But I have found that this is what creates and has created the extraordinary results in my life. Even though it's painful, it's always worth it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, first of all, that is the whole podcast. It's brilliant. And I want to start by the conversation about your upbringing, because when I talk about wealth, it's always about our money story. What I find fascinating is we all have parents that we either kind of emulate them or we rebel against them. So it sounds like you had one of both. It's so fascinating to see that within ourselves. And then the other conversation is this is not a overnight success story. This is what's so important because people all the time, they'll see something on the internet, be a bazillionaire in 5 minutes. And we know that's not true. First of all, because they can't hold it, right? You've not created the container for it. But I want you to just share some stories about your own journey, but some of your clients' journeys of how we get so trapped into this immediate gratification that I have to have it.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, yeah, and this is no overnight success story over here. It's a lifetime of many lifetimes or whatever. But essentially, kind of longer story short, is I actually grew up quite wealthy. I grew up around people with money and in environments where like wealth and having money is just normal. And I was quite embarrassed that I didn't really click that fact till I was 30 years old, because
Wow.
that was just my normal. Like it was just
Yeah.
my normal to be a member of a yacht club, to go to these like fancy villas, to go like, and to be honest, when you're hanging out with people with money, there's always people with more money. So we weren't like the richest of all of them. So I actually didn't feel like we had that. We were that wealthy. And then when I had my own two kids and we were very broke, I was thinking, wait just a minute. And so that was the first thing that's kind of embarrassing, but was the fact. But my mom grew up very poor. My mom was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and then grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and actually grew up very poor. But my father grew up quite wealthy, going to like the top British boarding schools. And so I grew up more on my dad's side of the family as my normal, but I really grew up around a lot of different kind of backgrounds and experiences. But I actually rejected both of my parents, because I was like, I grew up in this wealth, and then everything fell apart when I was a teenager. It was very traumatic. And although we had the privilege of home and nice food and nice holidays and, clothing and things, there's a lot of physical privilege. There was some serious void when it came to emotions, feeling loved. I know technically I was loved, but like the feeling of love, I never felt it. Emotional safety, spiritual connection. It was all about external performance. It was all about the external, what you looked like, what you had. And I have always been a very soulful, like deep diver. And there was an emptiness. And so when I had a spiritual awakening when I was 18. And when I got into meditation and spirituality and healing, and I was seeking something deeper, because I was like, there's something seriously wrong and missing here. And then I went deep into the spiritual world, and I was like, excuse my French, but like, fuck the material world. I was like, this is bullshit. I don't care about things. Like, I grew up with all that and it was empty. And then I pendulum swung into really deep into the spiritual world. I mean, I have literally been around the universe and back again, obsessed with energy and manifestation and healing. And so I spent a long time in that, which was amazing. But what was really interesting, that when I had my two little babies, this is where the money piece hit me really hard. And actually at that point, I was 32, like I wasn't a child. And I had been, running my business as a healer, getting extraordinary results doing my energy work, but completely unconsciously rejected money. I didn't even realize I'd rejected money. So it would take me a while to get that piece. But what happened was I was very in la la land around it a little bit, because I was like, I think when you grow up, the privilege of growing up around wealth and money is this sense of, I guess, privilege, right? Where something inside of me was like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But actually, I would get my ass kicked pretty hard to realize, like, I fundamentally was fine. And then when I experienced this sense of like, so I was first in spiritual la la land, like, I'm just going to manifest it just from like sitting in my bedroom, which the thing is I did, because you actually can manifest that way. But what happened is things got harder and tighter, and I had to face reality, was this thing around, this is actually quite embarrassing. I don't feel embarrassed about it anymore, but it was like an entitlement. So I was like, why isn't it here? Why don't I have it? like literally a spoiled little rich kid. Like I couldn't understand. What I didn't know then was that no one had sat me down and taught me about money, how to make it, how to grow it, how to take care of it. My dad was literally an accountant. My mom's partner, she was an investor. Like I was, all around it, but I didn't know what to do with it. I just expected it to be there. And then when it wasn't, I had to learn, the hard way. So that's one piece, was just like, why is it not here? Sort of just like, I've done this and I've done that.
Right.
So that was one bit. And then the thing that I really, really see that runs most people is, the hard thing is when you are in the experience of not enough, right? Not enough money, let's say. We go into survival mode.
Yeah.
What happens usually, because obviously I teach about money manifestation, people will come to me sometimes when they're really struggling, like they've hit some kind of stuck point, some kind of rock point. They're actually externally usually very successful, but they've hit up against a roadblock, and what was working is no longer working. And that's a very painful place to be. But what happens when we're in like that scarcity consciousness or not enough? We go into survival mode, which is completely understandable, but it has us being very grabby or trying to get. And so we're like pushing or hustling or forcing or convincing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to manifestation, which is, let's say it's a very deep and profound subject, but let's say attracting towards you, it literally creates blocks and barriers to actually receiving what you want. So we go into like hard work, hustle, force, push, or some people go into avoid. Like, I just don't even want to like look at the facts of my financial reality. Shame and blame. We go into like blaming everyone and everything. So there's some very deep patterns that show up with our relationship with money. And honestly, I had no idea up until I was about 32 that any of this was running me.
Yeah. Well, I love that you used the phrase our relationship to money, because I have said for decades our relationship with money is the most important relationship that we have in our life, because it isn't money, that symbol, it's that energetic connection. So when you talk about our blocks, money blocks are something that we have complete energetic control over.
The thing that's so fascinating is that from the outside, especially when you don't have something, you can look at people that you would judge to be successful or wealthy. And there's a lot of projection onto people and a lot of misunderstanding and misconception. And I think I have the great honor and privilege of people coming and sharing their biggest challenges with me. I've worked with people, because I've been doing what I do professionally for 25 years, that I've worked with people who are absolutely broke, single parents on benefits, all the way to very, very wealthy people. And also because I like financially wealthy people. And I find it fascinating because when we're talking about the patterns, and for anyone who doesn't know what money blocks are, I experience them as energy around your body, but we could look at it through the lens of the nervous system. But essentially it's your thoughts, your emotions, how your nervous system reacts against what you want, and also what's happening in your energy system that is unconsciously creating your lived experience. So what's interesting to me, as I started working with more and more successful people, I noticed that the same stories were still there, and it wasn't really about how much money was in your bank account. And that's a very private conversation. So when people, trust me with the facts of their financial reality, what's so interesting is I've been on conversations, with, one woman in particular. It was like she was drowning in survival. Like it was, at the bread line. And I have coached lots of people who are, genuinely on that bread line. And then I said, can I just find out the facts of this situation? Like, what do you actually have? Like, let's look at your investments, let's look at your, pension, like your property portfolio, like what's going on here? And this person was doing just fine, right? But we're like 100K plus in accounts and all this stuff. So what was so interesting for me is that in their system was still like absolute, we are going to die kind of survival. So what I realized over time was that this survival mode, and probably the same for me when I had felt in survival mode too, is like, I still have a house, I still have food, I'm still paying my bills. Yeah. So it's like, there's different degrees of it. But what I find fascinating is those blocks and those patterns. So a lot of my clients, they know how to make money, they have money, or they had money. They've been, very successful in some ways, but those patterns don't go away. So they think I just need more money and more money, or I need to save more money and have more money. but it doesn't necessarily take away that feeling of lack and scarcity, not enough. So for me, this is, and that's what I grew up with as well. Like my dad was in total survival mode around money. So growing up, I thought we were poor.
Yeah.
Because it was like the fear in his system was like we were dying. And then like, wait a minute, we have all these club memberships. Remember the Royal, Yacht Club? We're like flying to, what? So why are you acting as if we're dying and so that's what I realized as a child, why I was so confused. So my work is like, okay, yes, we want money in the bank. Of course we do. I want you to be financially free, financially stable, financially safe. But if you don't sort that inner game out, your relationship with money and wealth, which is actually it has nothing to do with money at all, by the way. Nothing changes. It's then you're in the constant cycle of never enough. And I've been in that too, where it's never enough. Like, okay, you need more and then more and then more, because there's this gaping hole of not enough living inside of us and living inside of most people, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really is so key to me, the idea that we're not enough.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily always put those two together, right? So, but not enoughness shows up in every area of our life, not just the financial. And it can show up in the financial, but I'm not lovable enough. I'm not good enough to have the relationships that I desire. And so talk about that from the perspective that clients that you've experienced from dead broke. As I said, I've been in all of these situations because the patterns stay with you, but the not enoughness is really the biggest hole. I call it the God hole that we all carry around with us. And people
Yeah.
want to say I'm special because I feel this way, and the reality is we all have it. And
Yeah.
so it just shows up in different ways. So talk about some of the patterns that you've seen.
Yeah, well, this was the thing I was obsessed about when I first started facilitating, money manifestation work. And it was like a research project. I did, and I mostly spoke to women in the beginning of this conversation. And I remember being like, okay, so what is it you want? Like, how much money do you want? And then what's stopping or blocking you from receiving what you want? And there'd be levels and layers, right? And I would ask them like, what comes up? And then they'd start, there'd be memories that come up. And then I'd be, what's under there? What's under there? So I'm I'm an energy detective. And my thing is about getting to the root, right? Pull the root out, because there's levels and layers of our experience with it. But at the root of every single person was, I don't feel good enough. Or I don't feel like I deserve it. I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm deserve it. And that in the body is really down in the genitals and the lower part of our belly. So those money blocks usually are on the base and the sacral, if you're into the energy centers, the root chakra, sacral chakra. And in there is usually a lot of trauma, or I call it the unmet, unheld parts of yourself. And it's like a gaping hole, like you call it the God hole. I call it's like the hungry ghost, or just the void. And if we don't learn how to hold that, it's not necessarily about filling it, but if you don't learn how to lead that or take radical self-responsibility for your own gaping hole, what happens is we're just seeking, and that's where addiction comes from. It's like we're seeking substance. I had this with food, where I was just like shove. So it's food, alcohol, addiction, we're like workaholics, social media holics, whatever. And what I found was that was what's running. And I find this is what's running like most entrepreneurs, most leaders. It's like wealth creators. And what happens is if you can create incredible results from that place as well. Like it creates unbelievable drive. But at some point you have to meet your maker, right? And it's usually that midlife crisis point where you crash and burn, because the drive of not enough eventually catches up to you, because it's shadow. Like you've got to face it at some point. And it's painful to realize you've been building your whole life running from that not enough wound, which most people are, especially high achieving, successful people. Then you're like, wait a minute, you have the relationship, the house, the business, the success. And honestly, this is the time most people feel the most alone, most depressed, being like, what the hell? I thought this was going to be the thing that makes me feel enough. And turns out it doesn't. It's like temporary, maybe you feel temporary relief for a few seconds, then it's gone. It's like more. So this has been my obsession because I am all about, impact. I know you're all about impact, right? Making a difference. How do we create difference? And this, if we don't get a handle on this, it really limits our ability to I call it, impact, influence, income. And it's like, it's, as you can hear, it's kind of been my obsession, and I'm super fascinated about it still.
Yeah. I love that because I've spoken so much about the hustle, right? So for women especially, we get to this mid um, life situation and menopause happens, and then the brain starts to rewire and things change. And yet I look back on my younger life and I look at women especially, but men as well, that are in that drive mode, right? That are in the doing mode, which I call the masculine. And then pivoting into more the feminine, which is looking at how am I impacting the world? What is my legacy? How am I showing up here? And yet it feels like there's still such a disconnect for the balance of that because I
Mhm.
am a driver, like I've always been. And even when I find my zen, there's still going to be that energetic part of me that wants to drive, not to fill the hole so much anymore, although that comes in there, but there is this balance. So, how are you helping your clients find that balance, number one? But number two, because I think part of it is we do want to have impact. There is this part once we realize the hustle isn't going to do it, but also we want to be able to impact the planet. We want to leave a legacy, even if it's with one person. It doesn't have to be global. But what is that energy shift, that balancing act that you're seeing now with people, especially in today's world?
Yeah, well, this is like a big part of my mission, right? I call it like integrated wealth, which is
Mhm.
the integration of the balance of masculine and feminine, is one way of saying it.
Right.
But how I see it psychically is the integration of it's like soul aligned systems or heart
Mhm.
aligned systems. So the systems is and the structure is the masculine. And I see that a bit
Mhm.
if you look at the body, it's like the skeleton
Right.
or the walls of the house or the system of your business or your finances, which is like the frame, the masculine that,
Right.
that is designed in the healthy masculine to protect, to provide.
Yeah.
And the feminine is intuition, it's life force energy, it's creative energy, it's soul, it's kind of brings everything to life. It's the love inside of the home. It's the energy.
Mhm.
And that energy has been suppressed on this planet for a very, very long time. So, what this is about now is waking up and
Yeah.
healing, if you will, or integrating healthy masculine and feminine in every part of life. So, I talk about the 7 wealth pillars. And this is really what that is. And what I have found, if we're taking radical self-responsibility, it's about understanding that we need to do that integration work starting within. So I, as a woman, obviously I went through very angry feminist phases and stages, and I was like the system and rah, like really angry at the man. But then what I learned when I went deep into meditation, because everything I do is channeled in. It's like a wisdom I tap when I go deep into
Mhm.
meditation, stop doing and start chilling,
Yeah.
which I learned, by the way, by burning out over and over again.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of drive too. And if I drive too hard from the wound, which is what I did, I burn out. I started doing that at 17. I didn't get away with that like other people do. But what I learned by going into meditation was like really like trying to figure out how do we do this. And what I was shown is that what that thing you see out there, the man or whatever it is, um, lives inside of you. It lives inside of your body.
Yeah.
And the way for you to dismantle the problems you see in the world that you want to change, you dismantle it within. And
Mhm.
I was thinking, so I got it psychically, but actually doing it is another thing because it's quite painful work. It's like dismantling. So I've been obsessed with what is healthy feminine, what is healthy masculine, what is healthy business, what is healthy finance. So part of my mission is transforming the financial system. I say one body, business, bank account at a time, and really big-hearted leaders and change makers that want to make a difference. Like what I learned is we can't do that by blaming or shaming or fighting or anything. So I am always guided just to release the inner war, the inner battle, the inner fight, and do that rewiring inside. And I have to say, like I said, it's painful. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. but it's miraculous. And I figured out how to do it. And this is my big passion. So we have both. We need to have a balance of both energies. It's the go and the flow, right? It's the rest and the action. It's the doing and the being. It's not just about gender, right? It's so much deeper and richer than that. And what I know, and the thing that's so exciting to me, is that when we find more of that balance, we actually can create on a much deeper and richer level. But it's not coming from ego, right? So like it's that butterfly effect, the impact we make. It might look like one person, but we have no idea of the ripples. Like, and this is what my guidance would say to me when I go into meditation. They said, Laura, if you knew the impact you're making just with your energy, you would never worry again. But we can't always see it. And our ego sometimes wants, the validation or the recognition or the data but actually how I see it is like through our body, like our heart and our soul and our, whatever you want to call it, what we're doing in our work, it's creating change that we can't see necessarily physically, at least right away. So this is the game I play.
Yes.
And it's wonderful, intense, but wonderful.
It is wonderful. And I agree with you like 1000% because it is this energy. I was doing a quick little talk yesterday at a local North Texas Rotary Club. And I always use the word frequency and energy. And it was, I could feel it like deflating like a, bad balloon because not everybody is on this same wavelength as far as the way their belief systems work. But yet, I want to talk about a bigger conversation because what you just said, it's about us having our own internal conversation and changing internally. I mean, I can lay or sit in meditation and just feel that I'm touching areas of the universe because it's all populating itself. I mean, there's more power doing that than there is 1,000 people, standing outside with a sign. It really truly is that doingness energy is not as powerful as our beingness energy. But it's, as you said, we don't get to see it right away. Our ego is like, hey, what's the result? And we don't have a viable per se result, but you can feel it. I'm assuming you can feel the shift on the planet to
Oh
this
yeah.
feminine connection because it's just balancing out the old masculine. For 2000 years it's been very masculine conversations. But the thing is how do you sense it when you're feeling this? Because sometimes I personally feel like, oh God, is it really happening? I know it's really happening, but we have this vision that sees crazy stuff. So what do you feel though? What are some of the signposts for you that we are shifting this energy force on the planet to a frequency of that higher vibration?
Great question. So I am a visionary, which means that when I was 18 and I had my spiritual awakening, I was being shown the future and what my purpose was and what my mission was. And when I kind of first started working as a healer, as a general channel healer, spiritual coach, I was seeing all this wisdom, which was in the 2020s. There was going to be a huge shift where the old systems that were built on misuse of power were going to start crumbling. And we'd see the rising of new systems that were more earth-aligned, human-aligned, heart-aligned. I'm like, wow, I can't wait for the 2020s. That's going to be amazing. When everything is going to be fantastic. So my visions are absolutely beautiful. And then when we're going through it, I say to my inner guidance, I'm like, it's a little bit harder down here than those visions you showed me. So I always see the most beautiful things, and yet the humaning of it is a different experience. So I am blown away because obviously I've been in this game for a long time. I've been holding this vision for a long time. I've been doing my healing work kind of quietly-ish with my clients for a long time. But I really noticed, I see these waves of collective shifts that happen often through a crisis. It's like the financial crisis of 2008, for example, wars kicking off, COVID in 2020. I mean, what was amazing to me around COVID is suddenly the conversations about mental health, suddenly everyone was talking about it in a normal way. Things I've been doing for a very, very long time, like thinking, even the subject of manifestation and energy, that like I'm in rooms now with really masculine men who are talking about manifesting and energy. I'm like, what is going on? So I'm seeing it in real time because I've been in this game for so long. Like there's a huge consciousness shift, but at the same time, right, we're seeing a lot of very difficult and devastating things happening. And so this is this contrast. And so it looks like everything's falling apart and shit's hitting the fan. So, and the problem is if you just look at what's going on the surface, it can seem hopeless. So the way that I experience it, to answer your questions, I go into meditation and I get guided into like what to do, how to show up, that there is powerful change happening. But when you start bringing more light or consciousness to something, it first reveals all the darkness, right, the shadow. And that's really what I see is coming up. It's like we are more aware. Things that were hidden and buried are now up. So we have more awareness, which is very overwhelming. But at the same time, how I see it is this: I see it and I feel it, but this rising tide. I mean, the energy now, I have never felt anything like this in my entire life. And it is like the doors have unlocked. So, and I was being prepared for this time to lead during this time, to be very honest with you, 20 years ago, because the thing is right now, in terms of the game of manifestation, it's possible to manifest faster than it's ever been. Like everything is speeding up. And obviously we can see that with tech and AI, but this is how I track it energetically. But at the same time, manifesting just doesn't mean just good stuff, right? So it's like everything is getting amplified faster and faster and faster. So what's so important, particularly as conscious leaders, we're here to make it impact. We have to manage our energy, our mind, our emotions, our nervous system, how we're leading, how we're showing up. And my guidance is always to not react against anything, because then you're just feeding it. If you're reacting together, you're feeding it. So then we have to go in and do that work of finding this beautiful energy that's here. It's unlocking more, you could call it feminine energy or creative energy or life force energy, that, to be honest, when we talk about wealth and abundance, that is our true nature. It's who we truly are, away from all the BS. That's the money blocks. It's just patterns and programs that aren't who you truly are. It's just and what I'm so excited about, because I have been waiting for this time for a very long time and I'm very impatient, just to let you know, it's like, oh my God, like I feel completely free and liberated from patterns that have been running me most of my life. And it's like a miracle to me. I have been working towards this miracle, and it's tied in with hormone shifts and changes, I'm no doubt. But I mean, oh my God, this is incredible. But not you have to really consciously choose to tap into what you could call abundance consciousness, or I like to call it your wealth frequency. It's a very high level consciousness that's available to everybody, but you've got to do the work to tap it. So I feel so much of this energy, to answer your question, but I'm aware that when people are in survival mode or at capacity or freaking exhausted, it's really hard to feel it. So you've got to, it requires a lot of space and self-care and, things like meditation to tap into that flow. That is like blowing me away right now.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I always get asked when I'm on podcasts speaking about wealth and abundance. What is the best wisdom that you can give and share with somebody that feels like they are so stuck? Something simple that somebody could start doing today that would begin to open up that lockdown chamber, because that's really what it is. They're so locked down and so in fight, flight, or freeze that they can't see the good.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to probably say something really annoying to answer your question. This is what I do, right? So the stuckness that we experience is happening, as you said, through our nervous system. So it's a freeze mode or a fight mode or flight mode. It's fighting against what wants to happen. So the only way that I have learned to start to soften that, release it, is to, you ready for it? Relax. Relax. Go into deep rest. So meditation could be one way. Not everyone gets along with meditation. You have to stop the fight. Now, this is deep in the nervous system. You can't force yourself to relax. And actually, my step one to manifestation mastery is relax. But it's funny, my clients, when they work with me for a long time, like, oh my God, Laura, I realized I don't know how to relax. And I was like, I know, it's like really high level, like relaxing, deep rest. This isn't watching TV rest. This is deep rest, which means that you feel safe. To
Yeah.
relax, you have to feel safe. And safety is, it sounds so simple. That's why it's kind of an annoying answer. It's like what blocks you from receiving more of what you truly desire, whether it's money or relationships or whatever it is lack of safety in your system. Your system is in a war zone. And there are some people who are genuinely in a war zone, but most of us aren't actually in a war zone. It just feels like we are. So we have to
Right.
get out of the war zone. So meditation, my friends, is one of the best ways to do it. Time in nature, space, time to be. I love going to a spa or getting, body work or something, where you teach your system, I'm safe to let
Yeah.
go. I'm safe to receive. And when you start, the problem is when you start relaxing, you start releasing the blocks. And what does that mean? Well, emotions come up, thoughts comes up, feelings come up. So, and we don't want to feel those feelings. So then we shut it down again, grab the food, grab the TV, grab the, social media, because it feels bad. So when we're stuck, there's something I call defrosting. It's like your money blocks need to defrost. And sometimes that's old trauma. Sometimes it's stories we've been carrying in our body for such a long time. And what I say to people is like, there's lived experience you had that you may even have forgotten about that gets unearthed. But there's also ancestral trauma. You carry the history of the planet inside of your body. Our bodies are made of the earth. So we're carrying way more than we realize. Now, that's a bit deep and intense, maybe for some people, but for people who are doing a lot of healing work and therapy work, what we're doing here is transforming money blocks, is dismantling the old systems that have been hurting and harming yourself, the planet, and it's deep work. So, and the stuckness, it needs time to relax, release, rewire, and you have to do it over and over and over and over again. And it might take you days, weeks, months, years to shift some of this stuff. The good news is now the energy on the planet now is allowing for much faster shifts, change, and transformation. But what I'm also seeing is some people are having real kind of breakdowns because they're waking up to things. So it's like having like a spiritual crisis. So if you don't understand what's happening, that can be quite overwhelming. So I've been in the healing and transformation game for a long time. So I understand like this is just part of transformation. It just feels like shit. But so it's really important to relax and to feel safe and to find someone that you feel safe with. Get support as well. Support is a superpower. Yes. I was terrible at that for a very long time. So those would be my answers. Sorry if that's annoying.
No, actually, I love the visual because I don't think I've actually put it in that context before because it is about the safety. And sometimes I think when we're in this, field, if you will, we kind of use jargon like maybe somebody might not understand, like it's about safety, right? Well, of course I feel safe. I have a house and I go to work and I do that, right? They don't understand that safety as your nervous system safety. But the visual that you just gave me as you were talking about being in a war zone, I've seen enough World War II movies and stuff. I saw people in a bunker, right? And what that must feel like. That's the energy that you were just describing, but it's with our safety of receiving. And so just the idea that going from that to relaxing now, I don't know if this is help anybody, but just having the visual of seeing yourself in a bunker, but feeling safe, how would that happen? Because they're in that chaos, right? And so it seems really simple to say relax or to feel safe, but it isn't the easiest thing. But you just shared, and this is looping it all the way back. This is not an overnight process.
No,
You've been doing
it 100% is. And when I started the manifestation journey, I was like, right, I'm just going to do this and then I'm going to get there and then everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be living on with heaven on earth and everything be wonderful. And about 10 years in, I was like, wait just a minute. So I have manifested everything I ever wanted, but the game doesn't stop, right? Because we're here and I have a much bigger vision about impact, influence, income, and global change. Like it's we're not done yet, are we? So, and actually what I finally got to is we'd be bored if it was done, right? We've got a life to live, an adventure to experience. And what a pleasure, an honor and privilege it is to connect with people like you and, the listeners of this podcast, because we can, there's also like joy and stuff to have.
Yeah.
Fun even.
Yeah, I tell you, I could talk to you all day. But for now, I want to share everything about your contact information, your website, your socials, everything will be in the show notes. So everybody go check that out. But what would be the best way for somebody to connect with you, to work with you, if that's what is calling them right now?
Yes, well, you could come and check out my podcast, Money Manifestation Mastery. And I'm on social media. I'm on all the social media platforms except TikTok. Come and send me a DM there. Say hello. I would really love to hear from you. And, I have a little call link if you want to have a chat. I'm really, really up for hearing how you're doing, where you're at, and I'm all about deep, authentic conversations and connections.
Mhm.
I'm like, let's just be real and let's make some magic together. So come and bring your full meal deal self and look forward to connecting.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so delighted that you came and shared your wisdom today because I feel the energetic connection even through this technology called Zoom, because energy is everything. And it has been absolutely 100% my pleasure having you here and sharing you with my audience today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just want to keep talking to you forever. So thank you once again, and lots of love.